So you're tired of breaking your back in economy class, you've sat beside too many random sneezing or smelly people, and you want to figure out how to move to the front of the plane in business class without breaking the bank. Well, in this video, we're going to answer 3 essential questions. Number 1, what even are eUpgrades? Number 2, how do you earn them? And number 3, how do you actually use them to save the most money on your upgrade to the front of the plane? Lastly, we'll also talk about some tips, tricks, and hacks to get the most out of eUpgrades so that you never have to sit in economy class again. Because after all, eUpgrades may seem intimidating, but they aren't really all that complicated at the end of the day. Most people just don't know how to use them or that they even exist. So after watching this video, you'll be sure that you can maximize your eUpgrades and never have to fly in the back of the plane from now on. So first of all, what even are Air Canada eUpgrades? Well, simply put, eUpgrades are a type of currency issued by Air Canada that lets you upgrade from a lower class of service to a higher class of service on a flight operated by and booked with Air Canada. Now, there's only one way you can receive eUpgrades because you can't buy them. You have to earn them through what's known as Aeroplan Elite Status, which is Air Canada's loyalty program for frequent flyers. But the good news is there's actually one way that you can earn Aeroplan Elite Status without having to fly, which we'll talk about in a short while. And if you want a full guide to how this whole Elite Status program works, then we've made a separate video about it. You can go check it out in this link over here. But for now, what you need to know is that earning Elite Status is mostly about flying a lot with Air Canada and their airline partners, but Aeroplan also lets you earn the lowest tier of 25K status, which will already give you some eUpgrades through what's known as Everyday Status Qualification, which means that you can earn status without ever having to step foot on a plane. Everyday Status Qualification includes daily activities like getting your coffee at Starbucks, taking a ride on an Uber, shopping through the Aeroplan e-store, and most importantly, spending on your co-branded Aeroplan credit card. It's no easy feat though, because you have to earn a total of 100,000 Aeroplan points through all of these eligible sources in order to qualify for Everyday Status Qualification and get your 25K status. And note that this only counts these eligible sources that I talked about. If you're transferring points in from a different program like American Express, or if you're going for those welcome bonuses with Aeroplan, those big bonuses don't actually count towards the 100,000. You have to earn the 100,000 through these partnerships like Starbucks, Uber, LCBO, the e-store, or just spending on your credit card. But if you do manage to earn Aeroplan Elite Status, whether through Everyday Status Qualification or by flying, then you'll be rewarded with a slew of benefits like free check bag when you're flying, lounge access, and of course the topic of this video, which is eUpgrades, a valuable currency that lets you upgrade to the higher class of service. Now, how many eUpgrades are you going to earn upon reaching each level of status? Well, no matter which status you'll reach, you'll get a core benefit of 20 eUpgrade credits, and then you have the option of selecting further eUpgrade credits as part of your select benefits that you have to choose at each status tier. And you can see on screen right now that the higher your status, the more eUpgrade credits you'll stand to earn, which also means the more flights you'll be able to upgrade from economy to premium economy or from premium economy to business. So that brings us to how to use, redeem, and optimize your eUpgrades. Because once you see your eUpgrades deposited into your account, that's where the fun begins, starting with booking your flight. Keep in mind that eUpgrade credits can be used to upgrade a flight that's booked either with regular money, so a regular fare that you pay for, or if you book your flight through Aeroplan points. So if you redeem your points for a flight on Air Canada, you can still use your eUpgrades to boost yourself into a higher cabin. Now, exactly how many eUpgrade credits you're going to need for a given upgrade depends on a variety of factors, including the distance of the flight, as well as the original booking class of the ticket. The longer the flight, the more eUpgrade credits you're generally going to need, and in general, the cheaper your original ticket, the more eUpgrade credits are going to be required to upgrade it, whereas if you have booked a more expensive booking class, then you might need fewer eUpgrades to bump yourself up. You'll find the number of eUpgrade credits that you'll need and all the charts you need to figure it out on this document on the Air Canada website, which will also link down below. Now, here's one thing to know. Not all Air Canada fare classes are going to be eligible for eUpgrades. So when you're booking your flight, make sure you're actually paying attention to the booking class in order to be able to apply eUpgrades later on in the process after you've completed your booking. Usually in the booking process, it'll say whether or not this flight is eligible for eUpgrades, so make sure to pick the right one. So with all that said, let's take a look at an example. A flight from Vancouver to Montreal that we see here costs 14,000 Aeroplan points in economy class. Now, during the booking process, if you click the eUpgrade option, you'll be able to select your desired class of service that you want to upgrade into, as well as your Aeroplan Elite status. So here, let's choose business class and Aeroplan Super Elite. Then you'll see your eUpgrade options appear, and here you'll note that some flights have instant upgrade space available, while others are showing that there's no space available and that you'll be waitlisted if you request an upgrade. Now, if you're waitlisted, then you might actually have to wait till the date of travel to see if your upgrade request clears into business class, which definitely isn't ideal, so you'll want to look for the flights that have eUpgrade space readily available from the get-go. In our example here, that's this flight, Air Canada Flight 306. And when you go to book this flight, you'll be able to choose from 3 different fare classes. There's Standard, Flex, and Latitude. And each of these fare classes has different rules associated with it in terms of how many eUpgrades you'll require, as well as whether or not there's a co-paid cash amount that you'll also need to stump up. The first option, Economy Standard, requires 11 eUpgrade credits plus a $250 upgrade fee. The second, Economy Flex, requires only 10 eUpgrade credits, and Economy Latitude, which is the most expensive in terms of Aeroplan points, requires the fewest eUpgrade credits at only 4 for the upgrade for the Vancouver-Montreal flight. So the best option to choose here will depend on your particular situation. How many Aeroplan points you have, how many eUpgrade credits you have, how much cash you're willing to part ways with for this upgrade opportunity. Now personally, I like to go with the option that requires the fewest eUpgrade credits and no cash outlay as much as possible, even if this is going to cost me more Aeroplan points to book. And that's because Aeroplan points, you can always earn more of them, you can always transfer points in from other programs, but eUpgrade credits are going to be a fixed amount that you have for the year based on your status, so once you use them, they're gone. Usually among these 3 economy options, I'll typically spring for the Latitude fare as a result. In fact, you might even say I have a certain Latitude attitude, as we're going to discuss later on. Keep in mind, of course, that if you're just booking a flight to get from point A to point B in economy class, then going with the standard option might make sense, but if you're looking to use your eUpgrades to have a better experience, then that's where you might consider Flex or Latitude. But of course, there's one additional factor that helps you decide between these fare classes that we haven't covered yet, and that's what we're going to talk about next. It's known as the eUpgrade clearance window. Now this area is where the topic of eUpgrade starts to get a little bit more complicated, and of course that means that it's where most people start to drop off. If you're able to stick through and understand eUpgrades to this level of granularity, then you're going to be the one who's successful in securing that coveted upgrade into those lie flat pods. The key thing you need to know is that not all eUpgrade requests are instant. Oftentimes your eUpgrade requests will be waitlisted, which means that you'll have to wait until a certain number of days before your flight to find out if your upgrade is successful. And most of us don't want to wait till 3 or 4 or 7 days before the flight to find out if we've been upgraded. We just want to book into economy and upgrade into business class instantly and have that peace of mind that we're going to be sipping champagne at the front of the plane. And so that, my friends, is where the Latitude attitude comes in, which is a term that we've coined using the economy Latitude fare to keep yourself from getting stuck in eUpgrade limbo. Now, Air Canada has a whole bunch of fare classes for economy class tickets. You might think you're buying just an economy class ticket, but it's actually divided into a whole bunch of categories. As we've seen, there's Standard, Flex, and Latitude when it comes to redeeming Aeroplan points, and there's also what's known as a comfort fare when you're paying cash. Now, the Latitude fare is unique in the sense that it's typically more expensive than the other economy class fares, but the interesting thing is when you're using points, the difference in pricing from Latitude to the rest is smaller than when you're using cash. So this is going to be really interesting when you're using Aeroplan points, because the economy Latitude fare, which is extremely powerful for reasons that we'll talk about, is actually not that expensive compared to the other fares. Now, what is that special power? Well, it's the fact that economy Latitude fares with Air Canada can be instantly upgraded into business class using eUpgrades, while the other economy fare types are subject to a clearance window of 3 to 14 days. So if you're booking your trip well in advance, like 6 months ahead, let's say, if you're booking any economy fare except Latitude, then you can't actually confirm your upgrade until 2 weeks in advance. But if you use economy Latitude, you can go ahead, book that flight, and upgrade instantly and secure your spot in those business class pods. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds really nice to be able to upgrade instantly into business class, but Latitude fares tend to be more expensive, so is it really worth it? Well, this is where it's important to consider what that business class ticket would have otherwise cost. See, the thing is, under Aeroplan's dynamic pricing model, if you're redeeming points directly for business class, sometimes you'll find a reasonable fare for that Air Canada business class flight, but oftentimes under dynamic pricing, it'll be something sky high, like 200,000 or 300,000 or even 400,000 points one way in business class. And compared to that, the economy class Latitude fare could be a lot more reasonable, in the range of 70,000 to 90,000 for a flight across the ocean to somewhere internationally that Air Canada flies. Let's take a look at an example to prove this point. A one-way flight from Montreal to Sao Paulo costs a whopping 157,000 points one way in business class, and keep in mind this isn't even the worst of Aeroplan's dynamic pricing. It could be a lot more expensive than this. However, booking an economy Latitude fare will only cost you 64,000 Aeroplan points, and if you were to then apply 13 eUpgrade credits that you earn from your Aeroplan Elite Status, you'll be able to upgrade upgrade instantly from that economy class ticket into business class and secure that same seat that would have otherwise cost you 157,000 points. In this case, you've saved over 90,000 Aeroplan points by using the Latitude Attitude, and those hard-earned points can now go towards a different trip in the future. Of course, if you encounter a scenario where the business class fare is actually a more reasonable cost, say around 70,000 or 80,000 points for that one-way journey, then you probably choose to book directly into business class and save your eUpgrades for future use as well. It's all about comparing the price points of the different options that will all get you towards the same outcome of that business class flight and deciding what's your optimal allocation of resources to achieve that goal. Now, there's one more very important thing that I need to mention about eUpgrades, and that's the fact that they're never actually guaranteed until the plane door closes and you're sitting in your business class seat and the plane takes off. If you use your eUpgrades to upgrade into business class, keep in mind that due to a variety of factors, they might sometimes need to downgrade people from business class into a lower class of service. This could happen if they had to swap the aircrafts around and they have fewer business class seats as a result. Pilots always have to travel in business class. It's known as deadheading, and so they often have to bump a passenger out of business class to accommodate that. Or sometimes you just have a business class seat in the cabin that's broken and nobody can sit there, and so they have to bump somebody when that happens as well. And typically when somebody has to be bumped from business class, it's the people who have used eUpgrades to upgrade into the cabin that are actually first on the list to be bumped. So in that case, you'll be very unlucky, but it does happen sometimes. If you use your eUpgrades to go from economy or premium economy into business class, it's not fully guaranteed until you're actually sitting in your seat, you've taken off, and you're enjoying that champagne that you're sipping on. I will say this is a pretty rare occurrence though, and most of the time eUpgrades are pretty reliable to get you from a lower class of service to a higher class of service on Air Canada, especially if you adopt the Latitude Attitude to secure your spot in advance. Now, if you want to see a full video about the Air Canada business class experience and what you can expect when flying Air Canada both domestically and internationally in those lie flat pods, you'll want to check out this vlog that we made on our other channel documenting the entire flight experience. Check it out right now, and I'll see you in that video.